Hi, this is Anita from 5 Minutes with Art. Today I want to talk about a different type of art form we don't normally talk about, but one that I personally love. It is the art form of Hawaiian quilts. I want to talk a little bit about the history of Hawaiian quilts. Why? Anyone who's been to Hawaii and has seen this unique art form so that you can understand a little bit more about it. There's so much that you can explore through the islands through their quilted art. So the journey of Hawaiian quilts began long before the arrival of fabrics were introduced by the Westerners. Hawaiian women were apt at creating kapa or bark cloth that were derived from from the plant. And kapa would be intricately, with natural dyes and geometric patterns. So really the Hawaiian women, long before, Captain James Cook arrived on the islands, that they were able to sort of have this foundation already that they could use for their quilting. Then the 1820s brought a significant cultural exchange as missionary wives began to introduce the art of quilting to the Hawaiian women. So they began to introduce the art of quilting as they sort of knew the quilting, the log cabin quilt, the other, kind of traditional quilts that they had. But then the Hawaiian women started, cutting and started doing a different form of quilting. They began to use some of these innovative techniques that they had used on the kapa cloth to put it onto the Hawaiian quilts. So they found the cutting and reassembling fabric pieces kind of a little puzzling. They couldn't quite understand, why would you, cut these pieces up and then reassemble them? So instead they started doing, which became more of a form of an applique quilt. And that's why, today on the lot of the quilts you see that you will see that it's an applique type of technique with quilting. They also, the colors for them became important, that they began to use bold colors, reds, greens, and yellows, against whites. And they began to use motifs that had to do with the islands, or motifs that they once put onto their kapa cloths. So they began to really take what they learned from their kapa cloth, their traditional kapa cloths, and they moved it to their quilting. And that's what really sort of makes the Hawaiian quilts very unique when it's compared to other type of quilting, especially traditional quilting that we see in the West. There's really some great places that if you go to Hawaii where you can see some of the Hawaiian quilts. One, of course, and if you go to Oahu, would be the Mission House Museum. You can see some quilts there. Also in the Bishop's House Arts Museum, there's some quilts in there, and the Honolulu Museum of Art. If you go to Hawaii, there's a museum on Kauai that has some of the Hawaiian quilts. And if you can see some of their intricate patterns that they have there, that they have on display. And if you happen to go to the island of Hawaii, you can, at the Mauna Kea Beach Hotel, actually has a lot of Hawaiian quilts. So if you're lucky enough to be staying at the beach hotel there, you can see some of these Hawaiian quilts on display. I really have always been a great fan of Hawaiian quilts. I love their bold colors. I love their choice of colors, their choice of motifs that they've used there in Hawaii. I've been really impressed with their tradition of quilting that they've used. I really appreciate how these women have used Hawaiian, have taken the old kapa cloths that they were making and have, they transferred that technique to make their own unique form of quilting, that they just didn't copy what the Western women told them when the women came in the 1820s or so. They instead invented or created their own unique quilts, which then now has become their own unique art form, which is known today as Hawaiian quilts. There's, places in Hawaii that you can buy these quilts if you'd like to be able to bring one home. I know that there are some quilts. I've seen them for sale. I believe if you do go to the Polynesian Cultural Center in Oahu, I've seen some quilts there for sale, and you may find them for sale in other places around in the islands and some tourists or some of the better shops. This is a great treasure to take home because it really is part of Hawaii and part of Hawaii's culture, heritage, and history. If you'd like to be able to read more, I've written a blog post called The Enchantment of Hawaiian Quilts, Hawaiian Art Explored, and you can be able to read more about these Hawaiian quilts and be able to learn more about the history that's a lot more in-depth than we're covering here today. Thank you so much for listening, for being part of our community. We hope you've enjoyed this 5 minutes with art. And if you have any questions or comments, we'd sure love to hear from you. We'd love to have you subscribe. Press that subscribe button. Join with us. We'd love to have you be with us each and every week as we talk about art. We'd like to thank you, our listeners, who know without you it's not possible. And thank you to our technical team for making this all possible.